assume to the gentleman from California, Mr. Farr.
Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you very much for yielding. And I truly appreciate the support you see in a bipartisan fashion here for this legislation known as the Marine Debris Act Amendments of 2012. This bill was first carried and introduced in the United States Senate by Senator Inouye and the late Senator Ted Stevens. And they recognize, as senators from states that are, in a way, from a whole, Hawaii, the entire island, surrounded by ocean, and so much washes up in Alaska with probably one of the longest coastlines in the United States, certainly impacts from the ocean on them. And that's why it's so nice and wonderful to have my colleague Don Young from Alaska, the only representative in the House from Alaska, to be a strong proponent of this. As he pointed out, Alaska's already seen the consequences of not having reauthorization when the Japanese tsunami has started to wash up. They've spent, in the first wave of the tsunami debris, Alaska has already spent over $200,000 of state money in just aerial monitoring of the local debris from the Japanese tsunami. What this legislation does is, in reauthorization, is allow states to receive grants from NOAA so that the states can deal with their coastline debris problems. It is important we do this for an even bigger purpose, and that is that, frankly, life on land is dependent on the quality of life at sea. And we know that we have, over the years and decades, been dumping everything we don't like on land and can't figure out where else to dump it into the ocean. And at the same time, we take whatever we want out of the ocean. Well, dumping and taking can upset the system so badly that you have oceans dying. And certainly we have big parts of the ocean that are dying because of all the debris and waste that are in the oceans. What this bill does is allow the Coast Guard, working with NOAA, the National Ocean Atmosphere Administration, to jointly look at, monitor, and figure out ways in which to clean this stuff up. If we don't do that, we're going to suffer. It's like living in pollution in your own backyard. Eventually there are consequences. And I think that those of us who've done ocean legislation over the years, and Don Young has been one of the greater ones to understand it, realize that in solving the problem, it's going to require local action. It's going to require national and international coordination. It's not our ocean alone. It's it goes all over the world, and things in the ocean go. I'll just think of the old stories about bottles and where they wind up. And now we saw with the tsunami that all this Japanese land mass stuff that was washed to sea is now showing up in Alaska and showing up in Oregon, and it's showed up on the beaches in California and in Capitola, where I live. So this problem is also going to require some partnerships between private sector, the fisherman community that knows where some of these drift nets are, and from public sectors. It's going to require innovative technology. You have to detect it. We have found nets that have been left in Monterey Bay that are too heavy to lift out with the conventional craft. We're going to have to go back to the fishing boats and the families who lost those nets and use their fishing boats, which is a private enterprise supported by public know-how of how to retrieve those nets. I think that's very exciting. It's certainly going to require education so people don't keep dumping things they don't want into the ocean. There are consequences for dumping. California is now addressing it in every local community by just stormwater. The fact that all the water that falls on our streets and roads picks up oil, picks up other stuff that isn't compatible with ocean life and washes into it. We have done a lot to clean up sewers and say we're not going to dump that stuff out in the ocean anymore, but we're still allowing other storm waters to get out of there. And so California is addressing this almost community by community. It's how do we stop stormwater and polluted stormwater from getting into the oceans. So this is really this legislation and reauthorizing debris cleanup is much more than just giving NOAA some money to go out there and figure it out. It's really an entire program of figuring out how to keep oceans healthy. So I appreciate the bipartisan support. I appreciate the leadership of Mr. Young. And I appreciate the leadership on the committees. This bill went to two committees, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee and to the Natural Resources Committee, and both committees passed it out in bipartisan fashion, and now we have to pass it to the Senate. I hope it's not too late, and I hope Congressman Young will work with me in getting bipartisan support in the Senate so that we can get this bill to the President and get it signed before the calendar year runs out. With that, I yield back the remainder of my time, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Speaker, for your patience.
Gentleman,